So my name is Tony Kelly, and I am the team manager of direct services of the NSPCC in Liverpool. The NSPCC is one of the UK's children's oldest charities. One of the UK's oldest charities for children. It was founded in Liverpool roughly about 140 years ago. And we cover a whole range of different services. The services that we offer in Liverpool are actually direct services directly to children. We work with child victims of sexual abuse, child victims of domestic abuse, and with the mothers, and also child victims of online grooming and exploitation. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit differently with you right now. I'm going to do something. I've done this in 4 sessions so far in conferences similar to this. It worked 3 times, and one of the times I just crashed and burned on stage. So please bear with me. So if anyone recognises this, you'll probably know what's coming. So it's just a little bit of an exercise because it's getting late into the afternoon now. It's a Friday afternoon. It's been a really, really good day. There's been a lot of information. So we just thought a little bit of an exercise just to bring us all back into the room. So if anyone doesn't recognise this one, it's literally just a little bit of a breathing mindfulness exercise that I want you to do. So I want you to think about, just while you're sat in the chair, just get yourself comfortable, 5 things that you can see. What are they? Is it in front of you? Is it on the wall? Is it over on the screens? And I want you to think about 4 things that you can hear. Do you recognise that noise? Is it inside the room? Or is it outside of the room? Think about 3 things that you can touch. Is it a piece of clothing? Is it the table in front of you? What's the sensation? What's the texture? What's 2 things that you can smell? Is it your perfume or your aftershave? Is there another scent in the air that you can actually smell? And finally, I want you to take 1 slow, deep breath. Just relax, roll your shoulders back, get yourself comfortable in your chair. Think about those sensations of what it feels like to, in the chair, feeling that grounding sensation of being here, being present right now. It's a simple exercise to do. It's a simple exercise for us to be able to do when we're having those moments of feeling a little bit overwhelmed, or those moments of which feel a little bit chaotic, and we're not just focusing on what we need to focus about. If you think about the kids that we work with, you think about our children, think about some of the lives, the chaos that they've got going on in their lives, thinking about the uncertainty and things like that, just a simple exercise. I'm not saying it's going to cure and it's going to change everything for them, but it can just be that little something which just helps them ground themselves. We do a lot of mindfulness work and a lot of breath work with a lot of the children that we work with. We find that it helps them prepare them for the sessions that they're going to be doing with us. And we also do it in the sessions and we reiterate that message with them over and over, because then that way, hopefully, they can start doing those exercises when they're on their own, when they're having those moments of uncertainty, when they're having those moments of anxiety and crisis, when they need to be able to do it themselves to regulate their own emotions. So thank you for bearing with me on that one. As I said, I hope you've got something from that. As I said, I do. When I was thinking about today, do I want to come here and just talk about what we do in the NSPCC? And I do that a lot. I go to a lot of events, I go to a lot of conferences, I do talk about what we do. But I thought, all of you can go onto the NSPCC website, you can email me, you can contact our office, and I'll be able to give you out all that literature and all that information. Instead, I wanted to talk about why we do it. I wanted to talk about what one of our impact goals is and why that's so important. And when I was writing this, it got me thinking to my time as a child protection social worker in Merseyside. And I've been a social worker for just over 11 years, and 10 years of that has been working in frontline child protection. And I was thinking about the times I spent on duty visits and assessments, literally having less than an hour to capture that child's daily lived experience. First time I've ever met the child, and yet I'm meant to be able to go back to the office and write everything I know about that child and be able to say that I know who that child is. You don't, not after like 40 minutes. Thinking about the times I've gone out to families, speaking to children alone. Speaking to children alone and actually having to be something that I picked up on the presentation before, having to be that people mover. Having to be that person, that social worker, that professional that's sitting there with that child and saying to them, you're not going to be living here anymore. Trying to get that child to understand that when I walk out of that house with them, unfortunately, they're going to be coming with me because they can't stay there anymore. Having to tell them whilst they're crying that they've got to come with me. I spent one night sat on the floor upstairs in this house with me back against the toilet door while an 11-year-old boy was on the other side of the toilet door, which he'd locked, and having to talk him through that process. My manager told me to phone the police. She said, it's 9 o'clock, phone the police, they can take him. I was like, wow, absolutely no way. No way was I going to allow that to happen. So I stayed there till about, I thought, roughly till about 11 o'clock it took me. And then going back 8 o'clock the next morning to make sure that he was okay, to make sure that actually he went to school because he needed that routine, he didn't need that consistency. He needed to feel somewhere that was safe and regular for him. His mum didn't want him to be with him. It's heartbreaking, that case, and heartbreaking for that kid. I can actually say he did end up in a really, really good, really supportive foster care. And it's been a while now since I've heard from him, but he did actually go on to do his GCSEs, and I was really, really made up about that. One of the other ones that always sticks out with me, and this is the one that you always get those kids that stay with you. This was a teenage girl, and she was in a children's home. And she didn't want to go back home. And she told me time and time again that she didn't feel safe at home. She never told me why, but she just kept telling me that she didn't feel safe. And for her, living in a children's home, she felt safer than living at home with her mum and her dad. But panel, as we all know, had made the decision that actually, no, we need to do a rehabilitation plan for this child to go back home. And we worked the plan because the placement was too expensive. I hate that word. I know we have to accept it, but I hate it. And her parents wanted a home. So we worked the plan and we managed to get her back home. She ran away on the first night. She got found, she got took back to a home that she told me she didn't feel safe in. And she ran away the second night, she got found, she got took back to a home that she didn't feel safe in. And she ran away the third night, and she got took back. And she stopped running away. And she also stopped talking to me. And she also stopped talking to a key worker. And we never did find out why she did not feel safe. And I don't know what's happened to her. Because by that point, she'd moved on to a different social work, and I'd been allocated a new case. Listening to Richie, listening to Alfie, and reading the stories before I came here today, it really got me thinking about this statement, about the statement from the NSPCC. Children, it's one of our impact goals, for children to feel safe, listened to, and are supported. This is what we want at the NSPCC. This is the third impact goal of our 10-year strategy. This is what we want to do to stop abuse. We want children to feel enabled to speak out, to enable them to be safe. And so that abuse doesn't have to shape or define their future. And this is why we have to do it. This is why we have to make safe spaces for children. This is what children have told us. This is what children have told the NSPCC. And it made me think about what I'd do differently now and what the way that I work is differently. Why we make a safe space in our hub. And I've got to be honest, one of my proudest achievements is we got inspected this year by our inspectorate. And the inspector actually said that she felt just this massive vibe all the way through the hub. It's just this warm feeling, this safe feeling. And I thought, if a professional social worker of 20 years experience can feel that when they walk into our hub, what does a child of 5, 6, 7 years old feel? And it made me feel so proud of me, and it made me feel so proud of my team, of what we can achieve. One of the things from today for me, it's about making sure we give the time to enable children to feel safe, to feel that they can talk to us, to feel that they can talk to the teacher, to the social worker, to other adults that are in their life that they feel that they can and should be able to talk to, and most importantly, to feel that they can talk to their parents. It's the difference in actually listening to a child what it's saying and writing it down, recording it in a child-centred case note on the integrated children's system, and then doing nothing. Or hearing what they have said, telling someone what they have said, advocating on their behalf, because what they have said is what we need to do something with. It's about remembering that they are the child, and maybe the only thing they can actually do is tell us, because we are the professionals with that experience. We are the professionals in that position. And because of that, we have to do something. And it has to be based on what the child has said. That's why they're telling us. They want us to do something with that. I know that the real world doesn't always work as simple as what I'm saying, and I accept that, and I do understand that. But when it can't be the way that it wants it to be, when it can't be the way that the child wants it to be, we then also have to be honest with them. Because do you know what? And even young children know, all the way up to teenage children, all the way up to when they're 18, they know when we're lying to them. They know when we're not being open. They know when we're not being transparent. And we need to check ourselves on that. If there's a reason why we can't do what that child wants us to do, then we have to own ourselves on that, and we have to tell them, we have to explain it to them. That is our problem, and we have to be the ones that take the lead on that. I don't know how we're going to do this, and the fact that we're here today, and the fact that there's so many people that are involved in this, actually fills me with a lot of hope that actually something can change and something will change. And because I know that we can do it together. Because every childhood that we come across is worth fighting for. So that's everything from me. If anyone's got any questions, then feel free to shout them out. Otherwise, I am going to be around for the rest of the day as well. Yes?
Hiya. So I just wanted to ask, obviously when you were talking about that young girl there and that situation that you had to deal with, how do we change that narrative regarding senior managers? And obviously that board panel, it was quite evident on what you said that your views weren't listened to. So how do we break that down in your opinion?
In my own opinion, I think I'd say the use of youth advocacy groups and participation groups, sorry, I can't say that, actually can work and can be used quite well. A really close friend of mine is actually someone that I met when I was an independent visitor when he was 12 years old. He's like 26 now and he's like this tall. He's a handsome, I'd hate to say it, but he's a handsome devil. I wouldn't mind. He was a proper geeky, scrawny kid, very much like myself. That's why we got paired up. He's like 6 foot now. He's really handsome. It pains me to say that. But he was always involved in the participation groups. He was always involved in those groups. And the participation officer that he had at the time was really good and really active. And it was through that group that he actually did make a lot of change in the local authority. They made change about how placements were not just selected, but also how that information was fed back to the young person. They made change on how the information and the literature that was being given to young people how that was getting done and how that was getting utilised. And also making sure that group made sure that the young people that were going to the LAC reviews had an advocate with them. But even before the LAC review, that the young person was told that they were entitled to an advocate with them, an independent advocate with them. And that all came from that participation group, sitting and being listened to and actually being heard about what they wanted and what was important to them. And that was a group of young people that was in care. And I think it's those type of things. But the great thing about that group, they weren't just telling the participation officer, they were telling the director of children's social care, they were telling the CEO of the local authority, and they were telling one of the councillors that was responsible for children's social care. So the people at the very top were the ones that had to listen to what those young people were saying. And I think it's about that. I think it's about those at the top, those at the strategic level need to be having those conversations with children directly. But that's not, I can't say that's the opinion of the NSPCC, but that's my opinion as a professional social worker.
I've only been in this job a year, and I think the social workers let the kids down. I think they get lied to. Like, we work in a crisis, so when the kid comes, like they promised them, the day after, the kid wants to know a lot. We try and contact social workers, and it takes 4 or 5 days before you can get a reply. Or they go, I'm too busy on other cases, or we're like the social worker then to the kid. Yeah. And as I say, I've only been in it a year, so I don't know all of it, you know. And I feel like you're trying to cover the social worker with trying to make it sound better, but really, you're blindsiding their part. And I feel like it's the kids, like, when you go to a 28-day activity place, you go and do this. Like, for instance, the last kid who come, the social worker dropped him off, said no restrictions, so she could get off with no problems. Then the day after, all restrictions come in. Now, that kid would be promised the world the day before, then the day after, it was taken away from him, and that kid would do nothing wrong. I just feel like there's, I don't know, like, they're ignored. It's just easier for them to just drop the kid off to us, for us to handle.
I suppose that's why we're doing this now, because we never
I can stand there and say time and time again the times that we've seen. I appreciate that. I can stand there and say the times and times, the stories that I've heard, the stories that have been involved with, the experience that I've had, the experience that my colleagues have had. And I think, for me, it's one of those situations where we know what's wrong with the system, we know what's wrong with children's social care. We've just had the Children's Social Care Review that came out, was it last year, the year before, I think it was, which listed a whole host of issues that's wrong with children's social care. And a lot of that comes not just with training, but also with funding, and also with the education aspect of it, and you know, the recruitment and all those type of things. And I think one of the things that I'm hoping personally to get from today is, we know what the solutions are, and we also know that a lot of those solutions aren't going to be achievable because the decisions that are made by others are not being made in the way that we want them to be made. So this is where we have to start thinking a little bit more collaboratively. This is where we have to start thinking a little bit more outside of the box, and thinking, well, actually, if we know that this service can actually provide a solution, well, why aren't we going to them? Why aren't we actually going and speaking to them? Why aren't we going and speaking to someone who has that experience and has that knowledge of how to address this problem? Is it about us taking a little bit more? Is it about us taking a little bit more risk? And I'm not saying risk towards the young person, to the child, because there's no way I'd ever advocate that. But is it about us taking a little bit more risk and a little bit more of an attitude of, well, we need to try something differently than just doing the same thing every single Monday morning after we've just had the crisis over the weekend. And I think part of that is, and I think that some of that message is what needs to be fed back up to the top, and some of that message needs to be fed up. The people who are doing this on a day-to-day basis, the people who are seeing these children on a day-to-day, the people like yourself who are working with these children, we're the ones who are hearing what these children are saying, so we're the ones who are then having to think differently about how we can deal with that. So I think it's about how we express that and how we get that message across, in a way.
A lack of communication as well between, like, the IRO, the guardian, and the social worker. They're all saying three different things.
Yeah. I've had experience of that many, many times myself. I don't know what the answer is, and I wish I did. I really, really did wish I know what the answer was. But I am hoping that we can start like thinking differently from today and looking at those responses and looking how actually through that joined up work and through that collaboration we can do something differently. So, you know, hopefully.
I just want to ask really about the participation. Only the children that are able to verbalise the role generally get involved in that level of participation. Only the children that are engaged are wanting to make change. And I've been doing this, I've been a registered manager for 20 years now, and I've found over the years that we're creating more and more of a class system within looked after children where those that can and those that are able get to live in good and outstanding homes, those that are marginalised are living in the requires improvement, and then all those, largely the statistics are coming up there, they're in the unregulated provisions. And I hate to say the dreaded word Ofsted, but they're not helping because people are afraid to look after those children that need that for fear of what it'll do to the home and the reputation and the registration, and then all you're doing is giving the message to the children is that they're not worth it.
I'm very aware of like kind of some of those issues that you said about it. It's something I've experienced myself. I've been in children's homes where, I've got to be honest, I've been in children's homes as when I was working in local authority, and I've come away thinking that's not the right place, but it's been the only place.
No, sometimes even the place that isn't the right place is better than no place.
Yeah.
You know, like Ofsted closing homes that children are invested in and are trying their best in, but they're still making risky choices, they're still going missing. Ofsted are deeming them to be at risk in that place because of the choices they're making. It's not that the support's not there, but they come home every night, they come home. Yeah. And what that to me shows you've got somewhere to go, rather than it being, this is the wrong place, they need to go. We lost a child in March of this year who has now lived in 6 placements since us.
Yeah.
And all unregulated because nobody touched her.
Yeah.
And we wanted her back, but now the local authority won't pay the fees because she needs to be sole occupancy. And you're in a vicious circle, and at the end of the day, she's going to be one of them children that you're talking about when she's 21.
No,
and there's people who do. So there's people who do care about her, but the system won't allow it.
No.
Yeah.
I absolutely get what you're saying. And I don't disagree that there is an inclement fear of some homes to accept certain children. That view is not the view of the child through the child's eyes. That child needs help at that time. Ofsted are there to help and not hinder. If without Ofsted, everything would be unregulated, it would be chaos. So my point here is we need to change the paradigm and change the view of the home. Ofsted will only downgrade you if you've got no evidence and no confidence in what you're doing. Okay. If you have justification, you've done enough risk assessment, you've got a well-trained staff team who are competent and capable, and the staff are there, and when Ofsted come in, you can calmly talk through how you've placed that young person, how you've engaged with them. We are managing the most complex, risky children in society. That doesn't come easy, and things will go wrong because of who we're working with and who we're dealing with. But if we can justify and clarify with clearly evidence what the home is doing and why they're doing it, we can challenge Ofsted back very clearly. I work for a big organisation, many homes, 800 kids in care. We get challenged on a weekly basis because some of our processes aren't very good. And decisions that... And this is where we're turning cost into a child.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think we need to move on to next speakers because we had a lot of question time there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.